Ahoy! Yesterday, a new game was announced, and I'd like to talk about why this may be interesting for you if you're interested in action combat, if you're interested in MOBAs, if you're interested in arena brawlers, hero shooters, or anything in between. Some of you may have already heard about this game before because it went under the name Project Loki, and it was announced as a game by ex-Riot devs primarily. And now it has an actual name, which is Supervive, and there will be an open beta later this year. With this announcement, all previous NDAs for Supervive were also lifted, and I wanted to show you some gameplay. This is not sponsored, I just got into an earlier playtest, and I recorded it, and I figured if it's ever possible to show you, I'd like to show you, and we have this opportunity now. I need to make some important disclaimers about this footage though. I played this a while ago after some people in the game already had a lot of experience, and this were my first few games that you're seeing here, so I wasn't particularly experienced. You're not going to see high-level plays or anything. And in the same sense, I was also playing on very high ping on American servers from Australia, so that obviously was a massive downside for me as well. A lot of the characters have more depth than I was able to unlock so far, so keep that in mind with what you're seeing here. Supervive actually has multiple game modes. The one that you're gonna see me play here is just a arena-style group v group format, but there is also a battle royale format, which is actually the one that they are advertising with more. That one has leveling, drop zones, and gear plays a bigger role, whereas in the arena mode you can just swap it out in the shop. So it's gonna be a different experience overall. I'm not the biggest fan of Battle Royales, and when I was playing the arenas were on, so I figured I'm gonna go for those. But of course, it is worth pointing out that this is another element of the game. But as far as I'm aware, nothing will force you to play the Battle Royale mode, so you just play however you like. Now, when you see the footage, and if you hear the words Arena and Battle Royale, there may be some alarm bells going off in your head, because it strongly resembles one of my favorite games, Battlerite. The devs seem to be very careful in their marketing not to draw that equation, and everywhere where it's mentioned in news articles and stuff, it's always mentioned as something completely new, but pretty much the entire core foundation here was something that already existed in Battlerite, and then later in Battlerite Royale. Problem is, both Battlerite and Battlerite Royale were financial failures, so as a dev trying to pitch their project, you probably want to avoid this comparison. I do, however, believe that fundamentally Battlerite was an incredible game, and much of its foundations can nowadays still be found in their next game, V Rising. So I am completely open to any game that tries to fill the void that Battlerite left, where you have very little player base and server activity now. And this may just be it. I think of all games that resembled Battlerite, so far this is the closest one overall. Such drawing comparisons is only going to be natural for me here. Now, in the build that I played, some things were maybe skewing in a specific way, but that may already be different now. They are very frequently deploying different changes to try and see what makes for better balance and better gameplay feel. So not everything that I experienced will be the same today or in the next playtest, for example. But the developers also seem to have some room to breathe and try things out here. They said that they're not going to run out of funding anytime soon, and they are aware of the struggles that a game like this may have, especially in early stages. So they might be able to change course quite a few times here and there to find the perfect mix that may or may not work out. So on the surface, how does Supervive even work? You have WASD movement, which I think is very much superior to clicker movement in any top-down game where you're just steering one character, and I think more games should do it. And along with that, you have a bunch of different abilities. Most of them need to be aimed to some degree in order to hit enemies, either skill shots or normal basic attacks as well. So it's a very skill-based game. In comparison to Battlerite, the roster of ranged characters or mid-range characters is significantly larger, and there's only a handful of melee characters, or at least was at the time that I played, meaning that the hero shooter aspect plays a fairly big role. By the way, if you like this info so far and you'd like to hear more in the future, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. While much of the fight itself is actually the fight and you are constantly brawling, there are also objectives to be played. For example, in the arena, there are points that need to be contested, and if there is no other win condition that's being met, like one team being killed completely, then whoever holds this point at the end will win. So there are some things that you may or may not want to pay attention to, more so in the Battle Royale, where you have different loot areas and stuff like that, which are going to be crucial to your progression and gearing throughout the match. Mobility plays a very major role in the combat. Most characters are able to blink around in some way or dash. There are many cliffs as well that you can glide over and kind of try and make plays around that, because obviously if you fall down there, you die. There are some innovative mechanics as well. For example, if you die, you kind of turn into an orb and you're not fully dead. And unlike other games where usually the only option is to have your teammates pick you up and bring you somewhere and revive you that way, there is the option to passively revive by staying close to an ally. If you do this long enough and the ally survives, then eventually you will come back to life near them, which of course also requires the cooperation of your ally. If your ally is running away and dashing away because they're fighting someone, then you may not be able to revive and you only have limited time to do so. Many of the abilities, however, will feel more familiar. Many of them are just common hero shooter abilities in general, like grabs and pulls, and you have a variety of things that are either from Battlerite or from League of Legends or from other games that just kind of make their appearance in a variety of different ones, like for example a scouting arrow that is a bird flying over the map. But they did add some interesting mechanics to those things as well. For example, with that scouting arrow, with that bird, that has a silence and an anti-heal attached to it if it flies directly over an enemy, I think. So familiar things that sometimes come with additional use cases where you can utilize them completely differently from what you initially expect. An issue that I saw particularly in the playtest that I played was that many of the ranged characters felt too strong compared to the closer ranged ones, since there wasn't really much punishment for being ranged. I'm typically better at melee characters than at ranged characters, but in this particular playtest, there were some ranged characters that could take away 2/3 of my health bar before I could engage on them, and I could do the same to enemies when I was playing ranged characters, and I had more success killing enemies when I was playing ranged characters as well. Especially on high ping, this felt a bit weird. But this may be a matter of experience or just a situation that was a problem in this particular playtest, so I'm not gonna put too much weight on that at this point. I really miss one of the solutions that Battlerite had for this exact problem though. In Battlerite, almost every melee character and some of the ranged characters have counter mechanics, which effectively bait your enemy's attacks out, because when they hit you during a counter, you typically don't take damage unless it's a specific attack that can avoid counters. And then the player who used the counter gets a way of punishing the person who attacked them. This could be in form of a mobility ability towards them, it could be in form of stealth. There are various different options, but generally I always thought that that was one of the coolest mechanics, and I'm really not sure why Project Loki or now Supervive decided to not lean into that at all. I believe it would make combat more skill-based and reactive, and also somewhat solve the ranged issue that I was experiencing, where a ranged player could get countered on their strongest shot and then would actually have to watch out for a moment at least, and couldn't just get away with spamming ranged attacks over and over without much consideration for the consequences. It is worth mentioning that Supervive also comes with all the usual you'd expect from a game like this. You get a practice mode and stuff like that as well, introduction to the game, so you're not gonna get thrown into the cold water and have to learn everything while in a match if you don't want to. All in all, I really enjoyed my experience with Supervive so far, and I think it's gonna be significantly more enjoyable for me personally once there are any Australian or Asian servers that are located closer to me. Hopefully we'll get that. I definitely am concerned about the long-term potential, because it might run into similar issues as Battlerite did, but if they are able to consistently keep it updated, then it may also not, and if that was the case, I think that would be fantastic. I think we really need a game like this that actually has staying power and continuous support. And I know it's incredibly difficult to find an audience for niche skill-based games like this, but if they can pull it off, I think that would be fantastic. If you're interested in trying it out early, you can sign up on playsupervive.com as well. They have more playtests coming up, so maybe you have a chance to get in. I think they're slowly increasing the numbers of players that they're letting in. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, clicking the bell, maybe leave a like and a comment. If you'd like to support me further, you can do so on my Patreon. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that, and thank you for watching. SLOTH, out.